Coaching is one of the most impactful professions in our society today. The impact from one individual coach can change the life of a student, direct a student's path that has no focus or goal toward a future that is full of promise. All of us who sit in this room today have been influenced to the profession of coaching because we have been impacted by the actions of a coach. Rewards in the world of coaching are priceless, but they are not always tangible. The opportunity to share in the experience of winning, to assist a team or individual in overcoming adversity, and to witness firsthand the growth of young people to adulthood can be measured in any terms recognized in our society. No other profession today provides the opportunities that coaching does. As wide and as varied are the methods, so are the reasons students choose to participate.
My reason why I play football is for my family.
I run for Coach Holton.
I play for my grandpa, who instilled discipline in me.
My reason why is for school pride.
And just like with every other aspect of life, rewards have a price. That payment can sometimes come through the stresses of the world we work in. The seemingly insurmountable obstacles at times in coaching can lead to burnout and frustration, which ushers in an early exit from the profession. That is our concern. The shortening of the coaching careers of too many young, talented coaches, and the impact on the quality of the coaching life now. That is what has led us to being here today. How do some coaches make it past that initial dismal phase? What is the insight longtime coaches possess that younger coaches do not? Maybe by choice, maybe by accident, these coaches have found the work-life balance that has allowed them to deal with the stresses of coaching and to avoid, or at the very least, overcome that burnout that takes coaches out of the profession. That is why we are here today, to identify some of the prime triggers for stress, engage in meaningful conversations, provide valuable resources to aid in achieving the balance between the coaching life and the real world, thus extending the coaching lifetime of a generation of coaches while increasing the quality of the coaching life now.
I'm the assistant principal and athletic director at Idabel. My first item of business is I fired myself as baseball coach. And promoted the guy under me, coach fast pitch right now. And so I'm very blessed there and very happy to be there. And I just want to talk to you for 20 minutes today about work-life balance. I think this is something that's so important. This is something that I think so many of us struggle at. As a young coach, as a new coach, I was terrible at this. I failed at this. The lack or the inability to have balance in my work and life caused me problems at home and so many other problems, but I've been able to learn a few things, and so I want to share these things with you today. My story, about 4 years into the business, and I think probably like every young coach, when you get into it, it's all about winning. And for me, winning was everything. It was almost like a drug or an addiction. When I won, I was good for another day, and when I lost, it was the end of the world. All of my spare time, everything that I focused on or that I thought about had to do with my job, and more specifically, my coach or my team that I coached. And then one day, I'll never forget this evening. It was on a February night. We'd been at a basketball, I was assistant basketball coach, we'd been at a basketball tournament, I think in the playoffs. And we get back, and like so many coaches do, we're sweeping the bus, and we're putting the laundry in, and we're doing all these things. And I get in the vehicle, and my wife is sitting in the passenger seat with tears rolling down her face. And I remember looking at her, and I remember saying, "What's wrong? You know, we haven't gotten into an argument. You know, we won. I'm in a good mood. You know, everything should be good, right? What's wrong?" And I'll never forget the words that she told me that night as she looked at me. And she said, "This isn't the life that I bargained for. This isn't what I want. This isn't what I thought I was getting into." You know, I know that our spouses they know what we do and they know our profession when we get into this. But you know what? They often, I don't think, know that they're going to be put on the back burner the way I did. And so I want to show you 3 mistakes first that I made as a young coach. Number 1, I didn't prioritize. I had no priorities. The only thing that mattered to me was my job, was my profession, was my team, was the sport that I coached. At midnight on a Sunday evening, instead of being at home in bed, I was working on the field because, man, I had to make it look better. On Sunday morning, instead of being with my family where they were in church and going to Sunday dinner, I was mowing, or I was thinking about this, or I was doing something work associated. And again, I say this, I'm talking about my story, but I know so many of us are guilty at this, and I think any good coach puts their team and puts their job up there on the list. But I can tell you, as a young coach that failed at many things early in life, my coaching was the number 1 thing on the list. And this is wrong. This is exactly the opposite of what we should do. I didn't prioritize. I skipped family time. I skipped outings. I skipped holidays to work on my job or to work on the field at the time or to do the things that I thought that my job needed me to do. The second thing, what I valued as success, I based my happiness upon winning alone. The only thing as a 21 or 22-year-old coach that was new in the business, that had a head job and we'd done some good things that hadn't been done in a long time, the only thing that could make me happy was to win. At the end of the game, to me as a young coach, and again, these are my mistakes, it didn't matter how good we played. It didn't matter that Johnny learned a valuable lesson. It didn't matter that I had, at the time, that I had a healthy daughter or that I had a wife at home. Nothing mattered except what the outcome of that game was. If I won, I was the happiest person in the world. But you know what I found out is when I based my happiness solely upon my success, solely upon winning, man, I could be happy today and not so happy tomorrow, right? And so that was a huge mistake that I made, that if I didn't win, I couldn't be happy that day. You know, and it was kind of like a domino effect. As a young coach, it started and it was getting worse and it was getting worse, and by 3 or 4 years into it, that was the only thing that could bring me happiness. And then the third thing, I didn't handle losing the right way. Just like on one hand, winning was the only thing that motivated me. Winning was the only thing that made me happy. I think as a coach, you have to learn how to handle success, but you have to learn how to handle failure. You know, my first year, we do things that hadn't been done in that school in 25 years. Man, I felt like I could go to eat anywhere in that town and get my meal paid for. It was awesome. I felt like a king walking around, 22, 23 years old. Man, we'd done some huge things that people hadn't done. But you know, when kids graduated and things changed, and when that 40-win year went to a 20-win year, I wasn't ready. I wasn't mature enough to handle these things. And you have to be able to handle this. And so I chose, and I wrote down a couple things. I chose negative ways to take out the emotions that I was feeling because I couldn't handle losing. I would take it out on those around me. I would take it out on those that I loved and those that supported me. Hence the reason I had that tough conversation later on. I would self-medicate, and this is something that I know nobody wants to talk about, but that a lot of us have done. You know what? If I won, I was celebrating. Cheers, right? But if I lost, I better have extra because I was upset and I was mad at the world. I self-medicated, which was a spiral that was going downhill spiral. And so where did it leave me? It left me at one point in my life alone, angry, and burnout. I didn't blame myself. Now, remember, I was too young and dumb to know right from wrong. I didn't blame myself. I blamed my profession. I blamed my job. And so at a young age, in just a few years, 4 years into my profession, I did what many coaches are doing now at too young of age. I quit. I said, you know what? I'll never forget, and I didn't bring it, and I don't want to get too much into it. I'm on a 20-minute time. I'll never forget the letter that I wrote to the board members and to the administration, which I was close with, telling them that I was no longer going to coach. That I'd lost everything. The one that I loved. Everything, everybody around me, I gave up and lost for this profession, and I hated it. And I didn't want to do it no more. To make a long story short, my next 5 years I did something really unique and really opposite of coaching. I worked in the funeral home business. And I want to tell you something, that is the complete opposite of what I was doing. You know, at first I loved it because people were appreciative that you were helping them. When a parent approached me, it wasn't to chew me out this time. It was to tell me thank you. And I love these things, but just to kind of sum that up, there in the last 4 months of my funeral home stint, I took care of 4 babies that came through there. And on the last one, after I helped another man pull the mother out of the grave after the casket, I said to myself, I remember why I got into this profession. I remember as a young adult why I chose to coach. I have a heart to help kids, not bury them. I have a heart to mold kids, to speak positive things into their life, not be here when it's too late. And so I decided to get back into the business that I loved and the business that I chose to be in. And since then, I've had success. Since then, I started as a baseball coach, and now I'm in administration, and I've seen some great things happen at my school and personally. But there is a reason behind my success story too. And that's what I want to talk to you right now. The first thing is balance. You've got to have balance in your life. The difference now in my career and then in my career is I have balance. Now you're thinking right now, some of you's thinking, man, I'm a coach. How does coaching and balance go in the same sentence? I know. I'm a fast pitch coach. And last week was opening practice week. And I practiced. We was acclimating, so I practiced to 8 or 9. I started late. I know that there's times where balance seems impossible as a coach. But keeping balance a priority in your mind it's an essential. You have to. You know, a wise man told me this one time. He told me you ought to have 3 8-hours a day. And I know I'm going to say this and you're going to think that's impossible, but this has always stayed in my mind. He said 8 hours you ought to spend it working. 8 hours you ought to spend it sleeping. And 8 hours you ought to spend it doing something you enjoy with your family or whatever. Now again, in this profession, probably not very much of the time do I get to use this like that. But part of my success plan is balance. Hey, there's days I don't get my 8 hours or even my 3 or 4 hours to spend with my children or to spend with my wife. But I want to tell you something. On those days that I have it, I utilize it. You know, I'm going to say something that's totally unpopular to many of you right now. But I'm going to throw it out there. And then you can, I guess because I have the mic, I can say it. And so you can dislike it if you want. But I'm thankful. I'm thankful that even for this dead period that so many people don't like, that in the forethought of their mind, they're saying, you know what, for you people that's so young or that's immature like Chad, I'm going to make you balance. I'm going to make you spend time with your family. I can tell you something. Next July, for 9 days, I will not go to the school. I will be with my wife and kids for 9 days straight because balance has to be on the front line. It has to be. The second thing that I learned is that I can find joy and other things besides just winning a game. I can find joy. You know, one wise man told me a story. I want to tell you this about the trouble tree. He said he had got a ride home from the janitor that day, and the janitor's car, his motor had went out, and they had to walk, and it was just a terrible day for the janitor. He'd had a terrible day. He said he walked in, and the janitor said, "I'd like you to introduce you to my family." And he walked in, and he was greeted by his wife and kids, and they said, "Honey, how was your day?" And he said, "It was great. It was awesome. Let me introduce you to my friend." As they walked back outside, this coach looked at the janitor and said, "How could you tell your wife it was a good day? You've had a terrible day." And he said, "You see this tree? I call it my trouble tree. Every night when I go in, I leave all my problems outside the door at this trouble tree until the next morning." He said, "And it's amazing how many are gone the next morning when I come back out to get them." That's such a great lesson, but there's so much truth in it. There is more joy to be found in this world than just winning a game. Again, what is this? What are we doing this for? Because we want people to do this for a long time. We don't want to scare people from this profession. We don't want people burning out. But if you don't want to burn out, if you want to do this successfully for a long time, you're going to have to learn that finding joy means more than just winning games. This past couple of weeks, I did something special with my kids. I told each of them, we're going to go on our own special date. You choose the venue. You choose the attire. It is up to you, whatever you want to do. So I take my middle one first. She said we can go to Shogun's. I have to take her to Claire's shopping and buy her earrings. And she said, I want you to wear slacks. So I'm dressed similar to what I am now with the dress shirt. The next day, I take my baby, the little one, and she runs the place, I can tell you. She said, "Daddy, I want to do the same thing that Sissy did, but you have to wear a suit and tie." So it was hot, but I wore it. Thank God for those simple children. The third day I took my oldest daughter. She said, "Let's go to Hochatown. We want to eat pizza and play the escape games. And by the way, Dad, wear jeans." I like that. And then my boy, and everybody loves the boys, right? He said, "Daddy, let's go fishing." But you know what? 4 days of my life last week, I didn't spend it at the school. I didn't spend it mowing my field. It was dead anyway. I didn't spend it doing these things. I spent it though having a ball. Had a great time with things that bring joy to me. The wisest man in my life has been my dad, and I'm so thankful for him. And he's told me this all my life, and I'm going to quote him here today. He said, "Any old fool can learn from their own mistakes, but it takes a wise man to learn from someone else's." It is my hope, and it's my goal, and it's what I desire today, that young coaches or coaches that's been in it a while, maybe you're here and you're feeling burnout. Maybe you're here and you're saying, "Man, I've totally messed up this balance thing." It's my hope that you can take lessons from others and from people like me who's made mistakes, who's messed this up, and that you can begin to have balance in your life, and you can begin to find joy in your life other than just the outcome of the sport. And if you do, I want to tell you something. These past few years of my profession have been the best years of my life. Not only success-wise, but just enjoyment. But it's because of the balance and because of the priorities and because of these things that I've talked to you about today. Thank you.
And I'm going to start off by saying I don't think it's really fair. I had to follow a preacher who's used to standing up in front of adults, having those faces stare back, sometimes blank, sometimes not so blank. But I'm going to start that off and give myself a little pass here. Most of you don't know who I am, and Amy introduced me. I'm Laura Clay, and I used to coach at Westmore High School. I was very blessed because I coached at Westmore my entire career. And most coaches don't get to do that. I was very, very blessed to get to do that. Started off as an assistant coach, coached cross country and track, coached junior high track, and worked my way very quickly into a head coaching position, and was very blessed over my career to have some very successful teams. And I'd like to say that it was all the great knowledge I had in my head about coaching, but honestly, I think it came down to that I was very disciplined. And I expected discipline from my teams. And you guys know as coaches that that's probably one of the first things that you want to get across to your athletes is you have to teach them how to be disciplined. You have to teach them to follow what your lead is, to set goals for themselves and follow through. And a lot of times that is the most important thing. Teach them to make a plan and follow through with that plan. And as coaches, I know that we all know that doesn't happen by accident. When you are getting ready to go out on the field or prepare for your game, you know that you've spent time somewhere jotting down your plan for practice and how it's going to go and what you're going to do first, how you're going to wrap it up. And you have to have that same kind of plan when it comes to finances. Amy mentioned that I got to retire on my terms when I wanted to retire. I loved coaching. My husband laughed at me all the way to the very end because every day when I left, I said, I'll see you later, I'm going to school. I never said I was going to work because I didn't look at it as work. I looked at my job. I loved my job. But we had set into place early on that we wanted to plan so that we could retire when we were still young enough to go and do things together. Because just as Chad said, in coaching, you spend a lot of time doing that, and you don't get to spend a lot of time having that quality time with your family. So we wanted to make sure that we allowed for that when we were older, and so that's what we've done. And I'll tell you, probably the most important thing, and everybody in this room already knows, is that teaching and coaching, we are not on the top end of the food chain financially. When we got into coaching, we never saw that big six-figure job setting up there. We got into teaching and coaching for all the right reasons for most of us in here, and that was we wanted to make a difference in young people's lives. We wanted to change somebody's life like most of us have had our lives changed by someone special, and more than likely a coach. I can still tell you everything about my coach, my high school coach. He's the one that really impacted me and gave me a reason to go into coaching. The other thing that you have to realize, though, and I know everybody in here knows that we're not on the top end of the financial chain, but we also have to make a living doing this or we can't do it. You know, we can't coach for free. We can't teach for free. But the thing that you have to realize when you very first get into it, and I know for me, you know, I'm of the older generation, and when I first started coaching, you know, my husband was the major breadwinner, but I'm right there beside him, and we were pretty equal. I remember when we first got married, I think I made $14,000. That's aging me there. Some of you folks will know, remember those days. I made $14,000 teaching and coaching. He was making $16,000 being a firefighter. And we had a $494 house payment that I wasn't quite sure how we were going to get that done. So straight from the beginning, we both fairly mature with our financial thoughts. He is more the spender than me. He would laugh at that I said that. But I was the tightwad. He was the spender. And we sat down and decided that we were going to make a plan with the salary that we were bringing in. We knew what we had. It's fixed. That's one thing that with teaching and coaching, you know, Chad was mentioning spending all that extra time doing the fields, doing this, doing that. Our pay doesn't change for all those extra things that you do. So even if you're successful, which I always think is funny, if you are a very successful coach and you make it into the playoffs, if you're going off of your salary goes down. And I always thought, well, that's no incentive to do this. Why is that making sense? But you got to go with, this is how much I know I'm going to bring in, and this is how much I know is going out. You sit down and figure those two things out. And then for most of us, especially when you're young coaches, the things coming in and the things going out are pretty darn equal. Okay? They're pretty darn equal. It's hard to figure out, okay, what can I live without so that I can start the saving process, because saving is going to be something that's going to be the most important thing for you to do if you ever plan to get out of coaching and maybe then go back and volunteer so you're doing exactly what you love. Because I don't know about how many of you are like this, but there are many days in the teaching I was living just to get out to coaching. That the teaching day was a struggle. It was a real struggle. But the coaching part made it all worthwhile. even though it was the small end of my salary. You know, the coaching's the little part, but it was the part that brought me the most reward. So you have to figure out how to make that happen. So we actually, and you know, we're both, you know, pretty simple people, but we actually did take time to sit down and figure out what we were bringing in, what was going out, and how were we going to save. First thing that we did when we were trying to figure this out in our plan and preparation was, we said, anytime that we could get a raise, which in teaching wasn't, you know, it wasn't happening in big steps. You guys are fixing to get a huge raise, well deserved. I say huge. It's not as much as what you deserve, but it's well deserved that you're getting one. Maybe that instead of going ahead and figuring out what can I spend that on, at this point, since you're used to not having it, you figure out how you can save that money. And that's an important thing to do. You've got to figure out what you can live without so that you can start saving and that you can start making a plan so that you can plan for your future. And some people's futures are different. I know that for my husband and I, we wanted to be able to retire young. Some of you guys are going to start planning for your family's weddings, your children going to college, maybe for retirement, just like what we've done. But you have to have a plan. And I always think that when you're doing this, it's best to divide it kind of into an offense and a defense. Offense, you're going to decide what you bring in. This is how much I have, and your defense is this is how much I owe. And then when you're doing that, you've got to figure out of your what I owe, because there's a whole lot of us in here, and you know, my husband would try to say, well, you know, you're spending it fast as I'm making it. Well, really, he's the one that was the spender, and I like to be the saver. But we had to work together as a team to figure out how we were going to make it happen. And that's probably the most important thing. You have to sit down. If it's just yourself, you got to have that heart-to-heart talk with yourself on, what do I really need? What am I really spending my money on? How much of it am I wasting? And if you with your significant other, your spouse, whatever, you've got to sit down with them, and for this to work, you guys you have to be on the same page. You have to sit down and be honest with each other about what you think you can live without and what they think they can live without, and then you both have to work towards that common goal. Because the one thing that I found out as we went along, and we had at my church one time, we had Dave Ramsey had presented to us, and he had a plan, and it was pretty impressive how he did it. He talked about how you do debt reduction on your credit cards, and there's lots of plans out there. There's consolidation. There's nonprofit organizations that can help you if you're already into that struggle. I mean, that's what you have credit cards for, is to charge them up and then pay the minimum and be happy because you're paying the minimum. But that's not really how we were meant to live. We were meant to live in, a debt-free life so that you are able to do what you want to do, whether that's giving it away, enjoying it with other people, whatever it is. But we sat down and had a plan for what we wanted to do. And in the beginning, this is pre-cell phone time, so keep that in mind. But we decided what things we didn't have to have. Back then, we felt like we could do without cable for a while, so that we could get our finances exactly where we wanted it. Some people, that may be what you could do. We'll get a digital antenna, we'll watch our regular channels, because that's pretty much what we watch anyway, and when we want to see football, we'll either go to a restaurant or go to our friend's house or whatever. But you have to figure out what things you can live without. For some of us, it's, I'm not going to stop and get Starbucks every morning. I'm going to just make my own coffee at home on my $30 coffee pot and be satisfied with that. I'm going to make dinner the night before, whatever, and I'm going to bring leftovers for lunch. Whatever you can do to make those small changes, because the whole thing with finances is it's not just sitting down and going, yep, I bring in this much and I'm spending this much, so we're all good. The whole thing is you have to plan for what's coming in the future, and the things that come in the future are surprises in a lot of, for a lot of us. You need to have your short-term plan, and that's making sure you're paying for what you owe with what you have. And then you're trying to make your midterm, and midterm goals are what I call the fund. You want to set aside some money in savings so that when the dishwasher breaks down, you're not having to add that to the credit card and add to your debt. If you set that money aside, you already have that set aside so when an emergency happens, it doesn't hit you quite as hard. Okay? So we used, in the beginning, we set aside, we did without a few things, set aside money so that we were ready to take care of those, those kind of shocking things that happened in our lives. And then we planned for the future with long-term goals. Our long-term goals, we wanted to plan so that we had put money back for deferred so that we would have money for when we retired. And in doing that, we said, okay, he gets raises more often than I do. We figured it out. I mean, it wasn't rocket science there. And so when he got a raise, every time we could, instead of figuring out what we could spend it on next, what else can we have? We said, let's take that money, let's put it in deferred, let's somehow put it in a 401k, let's do something with that and just pretend like we never had that. And we did that probably for the first 15 to 20 years of our marriage. So we lived, and we had a nice house. We had things, so don't think that we lived in a cardboard box. But we did things as we went along, but we prepared for the emergencies, and then we prepared for our long-term investments of what we wanted to do in the end. And the important thing I think that we did and that you have to do along the way is you can't say, it's just like when you go out to practice. You have your whole practice schedule out there. You get out there and you get started, and then it starts to thunder. And then the guy's walking out there, here comes the trainer. You got a command or got lightning. They're changing things up. You have to be ready to adjust your practice plan. You have to be ready to adjust your financial plan as well. It's never going to go perfectly like your piece of paper says. My life has never gone according to exactly how I have it. And I used to, when I coached, I always told my kids, we are going to have a plan A, and this is what we're going to do. But then we're going to have plan B 1 through 6 and plan C 1 through 12, because inevitably we always got to C somehow. We always got somewhere else than where I originally thought we were going to go. So you've got to be willing to make adjustments when you're doing your plan. Like I said, you've got to be ready to handle surprises, and you have to be disciplined. You have to plan. Those are the most important things. I have my own little theories and ideas. Anybody that wants to visit with me afterwards on maybe trying to help yourself get to that, I'd be more than welcome to visit with you. But just always know that it is never too late. Some of us have been coaching for years and years and never have really figured out what we're going to do at the next step, so we just keep coaching because we know we can't financially get out. It's never too late to start planning, whether you're beginning or at the end. And if there's anything I can ever do to help you, just let me know. Thanks.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I just want to take this time to thank Coach Whaley and OSSAA for inviting me to speak this morning. I'm going into my 39th year of coaching. I'm the athletic director at Douglas High School, and it was a position I didn't even ask for. They just kind of gave it to me. But I want to talk about influence, and the title that they gave me was Coach Said. Now, like I said, I've been in this a long time, and I'm got involved with Fellowship of Christian Athletes back in '81. And there's one verse that I like that's very important to me. Death and life are in the power of the tongue. It's in Proverbs 21:8. You have to understand, as coaches, that you are very important. The words that you speak are very influential to the young men and young women that you're working with. Words are very powerful. They give us direction, they give us guidance, they lay a foundation. And those words go beyond just the practice field and the playing field and the locker room. They go into the neighborhoods, the communities. They go into the dinner table, go into the cafeteria, and it filters over into the hallway. And then from there it filters over into the classroom. Then you got a problem. The words that you say to people, whether they're your students or adults, are very important because that says what you are and who you are and what you believe in. I had a young man, and I hadn't seen this young man in about 26 years. I coached in Millwood for 11 years. He was a freshman at the time. His name was Edward Marshall. This past February, we had a kind of a going away party for Coach Franklin. Coach Franklin had coached for 44 years in Millwood, winning the state championship basketball coach in the state. And a lot of players came back, a lot of coaches came back. And you see all these young men that you used to coach. And this one young man, Ed, came down and ran down the steps and got in my face. He said, "Coach, man, it's good to see you. How you doing?" I said, "I'm doing fine, Ed. How you doing?" So I'm doing good. You know, I was in the Army. I spent some time in Iraq. And he looked at me and he smiled and he said, "Coach, you saved my life." And I didn't know what he meant at the time. I was kind of taken by it. I finally got a chance to talk to him later. I said, Ed, what did you mean by I saved your life? What did I say to make you think that I saved your life? He said, "Well, Coach, you know I was in Iraq and I was a sergeant and I had a squad of young people with me. And we were caught in an ambush." And he said the fire was coming from everywhere. All my young men were frightened. I was the oldest one. And I had an 18-year-old girl that was in my troop. He said, "This is what you said to me when we were playing, when I was playing for you. You know I couldn't catch." And I used to tell you all the time, "Coach, I can't catch this ball." I said, "Look, Ed, if you say you can't catch, you're not going to be able to catch. If you think you can catch the ball." And I had to tell him that every day. Finally, he kind of caught on and he said, "When we were under fire, this is what I told that girl because she was scared to death. I said, look, we got to get out of here because it's bad and it's going to get worse." He said, "I could see that it was going to get worse from my training." All the guys were ready to go, but this 18-year-old girl was scared to death. She was pinned down, and he told her, "Look, we got to get out of here. Everybody else is ready to go. If you don't go, we're all going to die. I'm not going to leave you here." He said she just kept crying. "I cannot do it." And he said he had to get in her face and tell her, "Look, you're either going to come with us and get out of here, or all of us are going to die because I'm not going to leave you." He said she finally pulled herself together, got up, and ran out with the rest of them. And it's nothing profound. I just told him, just don't quit. Just believe in yourself. Know that you can do this. But that's the power of words. The things that you say to kids, and I never, in the 39 years I've been coaching, I was always hard on kids. I was always tough, but I never demeaned them. Never cursed them out. Never made them feel that they were less than what they were. But I was very demanding, and you have to be. You know, you gotta rebuke them when they do wrong, when they don't do what they tell you to do. But you have to be demanding. One of the kids, I was checking on one of my former players. His son was in an accident and he was burned over 20% of his body. I called him to check and see how he was doing. I said, "Coach, he's doing better. He's doing a lot better." And he started laughing and said, "I need to tell you something." I said, "What?" You got voted on something." I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "We were all together and we were talking about different coaches that we had. And somebody said, 'Who's the meanest coach that you had in high school?' And to a man, they all said Coach Hubbard before he had his accident. And when he said that, I couldn't help but laugh. But you have to develop a relationship with these young people. But not to the point that you want to play with them and joke around with them and try to talk like they do and dress like they do. You've got to be a leader. You've got to be a step ahead. But like I said, the things that you do, the things that you say are very powerful. Very powerful. Everybody in here, I'm assuming, has already seen the movie Gladiator, right? Well, in the beginning of the movie, Maximus says something. He said, "The things that we do today will echo through eternity." Well, the things that you say to your young people today will ring in their ears for years to come. So what you say to them has to be of quality, it has to be of value, because your words set a foundation for them. It encourages them. It protects them. It lets them know what to do, right or wrong. And don't be afraid of what other people are going to say about you. Don't be afraid of other coaches that are going to make fun of you. That's going to happen. All you have to do is to do the right thing in front of them, on the field, and off the field. And you'd be surprised how God will bless you. He will do it in ways that you have no idea. Some of you are just getting into the profession. You have no idea where you're going yet. All you've got to do is do the right thing in front of those kids, from the people that you work with. Now, I wasn't told how much time I have. How much time do I have, Coach? 4 minutes? 4 minutes. I was also supposed to put an emphasis on coaches. So I told Coach Willie, okay, I'll talk about the Arabian Stallion because I'm always asked to talk about this. I don't know if you know the legend of the Arabian Stallion. The Arabian Stallion, or the Arabian horse, is a very distinct athlete. He looks different. His gait is different. His loyalty is different. And the history of the Arabian goes back to about 4,500 years. Legend has it that Muhammad himself trained the Arabian. And he told his horsemen on the ranch that he had, go out to the known world at that time, bring back one horse from that region. After a year, they came back. Once they came back, he took the training on himself. He trained those horses for a year. There were certain things they had to do, a certain way they had to do it. On the last day of training, they did not eat, they did not drink for a week. There was a stream at the end of the corral that they normally drank from. On the last day of that week, he opened the gate and they bolted for that stream. As they got down there, just as they were approaching, he blew his bugle. When they heard that bugle, they knew they were supposed to return to him. One horse came back. He told his men, go back to where this one horse was found and bring the rest to me. You've all heard about a coaching tree, right? Great coaches have coaching trees. What administrators will do and other coaches will do, they will go to a coach and ask them, who's your best young upcoming coach? Who's your best offensive and defensive coordinator? I want to talk to him, I want to offer him a job. That depends on you. That depends on how disciplined you are, how dedicated you are to that program. That's how you develop a coaching tree. And there are several of you in here I know that are part of coaching trees because of the coaches that you came from. So my encouragement to you is just do the right thing, say the right thing in front of your kids, and love them. There's a lot of them, nowadays, a lot of them need loving on. Spend time with them, find out what's going on in their lives. Don't let it be X's and O's. Don't let it come down to a thing of winning and losing. Take care of yourself, take care of your family, take care of your kids. God bless you and good luck to you this year, Coach.